guys, so we're back with the Unteachables, and today we're going to read chapters 7 through 9. The first one is Kiana Rubini. I'm still in SCS 8. Well, technically I'm in nothing since I never officially enrolled in school. Back on the first day, Chauncey turned out to have stomach flu. That's why he barfed. Like, there needs to be a reason for him to paint the town. So Stepmonster never showed up to register me. That night, eating takeout pizza for dinner, while feeding Chauncey medicine out of an eyedropper, she asked me, "Kiana, did you get everything straightened out with the office?" "Geez Louise," my father exclaimed. "You were supposed to take care of that." "Chauncey got sick," she began defensively. "It's okay," I interrupted. "It's all taken care of." I'm not sure why I said that. Nothing is taken care of. There's no such student as Kiana Rubini at Greenwich Middle School. If I had any teacher besides Mr. Kermit, I would have been busted on day one. What's more, I'm in the Unteachables. Oh, sure, they call it the self-contained special yada yada yada, but that's just code for burnouts, nitwits, rejects, and behavior problems. Plus, one displaced Californian. If it goes without saying that I don't belong. I've kind of boxed myself into a corner, though. It wouldn't be hard to switch out since I was never really switched in, but then I'd need Stepmonster to register me for real, and I'd have to explain what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. It's not worth it. I'm a short timer anyway. I never changed my address from Los Angeles, so no one will ever find out there's a girl living here who isn't enrolled in school. And believe me, Mr. Kermit isn't going to notice he's got an extra kid in his class. Most of the time, he doesn't even notice he's got a class. I'm not learning anything, but even if I was in genius classes, I don't think there's much this one-horse town can teach me in 2 months. Could be even less. Mom says her movie's going really well, which means I could be back in California even sooner than expected. Fingers and toes crossed. In spite of that, I have to admit, I'm fascinated by SCS 8. It's not a good class, not even close. It's kind of an interesting one, though. I always assumed that kids who ended up in programs like that are just plain dumb. Not this bunch. They have quirks, sure, but unteachable? I don't see what's so terrible about them that they can't be with everybody else. Well, maybe Aldo. Nobody can get that mad at a locker and all that. Still, when I look in Aldo's eyes, which are green by the way, I see a person who doesn't want to be so angry. Anyway, if the kids are a little strange, they're not half as strange as their teacher. I use the word teacher very loosely. That's another problem I have about calling them the Unteachables. How can the school know they're unteachable if nobody ever tries to teach them? It's been 2 weeks and Mr. Kermit hasn't taught anything yet. He barely even speaks. He doesn't like kids and he doesn't seem too fond of other adults either. Yet there's something cool about him too. Nothing throws him, except maybe vuvuzelas. Anybody who could put out a trash can bonfire with a cup of coffee and never mention it must have ice water in his veins, even by LA standards. And just when you think you've got him figured out, something new about him comes out, like his secret past with Miss Fountain's mother, or when he fought like a tiger to get Barnston included in the pep rally. Now Barnston is fully reinstated to the Golden Eagles. He even stands on the sidelines at football games, leaning on his crutches and dispensing advice to the players. He has Mr. Kermit to thank for that. One day, Barnston is off at a team meeting when Miss Fountain pokes her head into the room. "Mr. Kermit," she calls, "my group is about to have circle time, and we were wondering if you and your students might like to join us." "Circle time?" he answers, mystified. I stare at our teacher. How could anybody in the school business never have heard about circle time? "You know," I explain, "like the little kids do." "It's not just for little kids," Miss Fountain corrects. "It's for everybody. Positive reinforcement is something you never outgrow. Think of how much better our world would be if national leaders would only sit in a circle and be kind and civil to one another. So we all troop over to room 115, and let me tell you, that class doesn't look too thrilled to see us coming in the door. They're seventh graders, only a year younger than us, but it's a major year for growth spurts, so they seem a lot punier. Plus, we have a reputation. That was obvious from the VIP seats they gave us at the pep rally and how quickly we got thrown out at the first sign of trouble. Miss Fountain's students are intimidated by all of us, so you can imagine how they feel about Elaine, the subject of school legends about force-feeding people pages of their own textbooks and pounding them with uprooted ficus trees. Plus, she covers literally 30 degrees of the whole circle. There really is a circle, marked off with yellow tape on the floor. In the middle is a smiley face, also on yellow tape. If my friends in LA could see me now, on second thought, God forbid, kid drivers, Unteachables, and now this, Greenwich sure is some town. Mr. Kermit doesn't want to sit on the floor with the kids, but Miss Fountain does it, so he has to do it too. There's a lot of groaning as he lowers himself down in a crack that might be from a hip joint. He balances the bucket of coffee precariously on his lap. The room is like an overgrown kindergarten class. Bright colors blaze from every wall. There are class lists with multicolored stars awarded. Every single piece of information comes in a voice bubble, emerging from the mouth of a happy cartoon animal. Susie the science snake, and Harvey the hall-pass hippo. I'd probably like it if I was about Chauncey's age. Mateo does like it. He lives his life through fictional characters anyway. He lingers in front of the big posters, drinking in the details of the vibrant caricatures. Mr. Kermit has to order him to take a seat on the circle. Mrs. Fountain even has a real animal in a glass terrarium in the corner of the room under a sign proclaiming him to be Vladimir and it's some kind of lizard about 8 inches long. A miniature Gorn, Mateo blurts. He's a gecko, a 7th grader corrects. Parker snaps his fingers. Like that lizard from the TV commercials? He's a gold dust day gecko, Miss Fountain explains. You can tell by the flecks of yellow in his scales. Gorns are from Star Trek, Mateo supplies, although nobody asked for an explanation. They're a reptilian race from Tau Lacerate 9? I don't know how to say that. Advanced enough to have mastered space travel. A loud snicker comes from one of the 7th graders. Class, let's welcome our new friends to the circle, Miss Fountain announces. Who has a compliment to offer? Somebody's feet stink, Aldo complains. Mr. Kermit glares at him. That's not a compliment. Yeah, I know. But something smells pretty ripe around here, says Aldo. Maybe it's the Gorn cage, Mateo puts in. A compliment, Miss Fountain goes on as if no one else has spoken, is a positive comment, a well done, to make people feel good about themselves. Try again, Aldo. Aldo's thinking so hard that his face screws up like Chauncey's when he's going to the bathroom in his diaper. He looks all around the circle and comes up empty. I know I'm just a short timer and it's pointless to care about people I'll never have to see again once Mom finishes shooting her movie. But my heart goes out for Aldo, who has this red hair that just won't stay combed. How must it feel inside when the closest you can get to saying something nice involves foot odor? From the opposite side of the room, a low voice announces, "That's a nice color." We all crane our necks to see who's speaking. To my amazement, it's Elaine. "I beg your pardon?" says the young teacher, distracted. "Your shirt," Elaine tells Miss Fountain. "It's a nice look for you." "What a lovely thing to say, thank you." Miss Fountain frowns at Elaine. "I don't think I know your name." "I don't think so either," Elaine rumbles back. Mrs. Fountain turns questioningly to Mr. Kermit, who gives her a blank shrug. "That's Elaine," I exclaim. We've been in class with him for 2 weeks. Doesn't he know any of us? A few whispered murmurs of, Rhymes with pain, come from our class and the 7th graders. A voice sounds in the hall. Where'd everybody go? A moment later, Barnsom swings into the doorway on his crutches, fresh from his meeting with the football team. I was wondering where you guys... Hey, check it out! Circle time! Join our circle, Miss Fountain invites. Why don't you share how you hurt your leg? I'm guessing it was a football injury. No way, Barnsom scoffs. The tackler isn't born who can catch me. I was changing a light bulb in the bathroom and I slipped off the toilet seat. I can see it coming, but I'm powerless to stop it. As Barnsom plops himself down on the floor next to Aldo, one of his crutches whacks the red-haired boy in the side of the head. Ow! Enraged, Aldo sweeps the offending crutch aside, knocking it into the corner. The rubber tip clips the cover of the lizard terrarium, sending it skittering across the floor. The Gorn! Mateo exclaims. Vladimir! Cry several of the 7th graders. The gecko is out of his home like a shot. He does a quick loop of the room and finds the door, post-haste. Mateo frowns. Gorns are slow and plodding in Star Trek. I guess Star Trek isn't that much like real life, Parker observes. You can say that again. There's nothing slow or lazy about Vladimir. By the time the first 7th graders reach the hall, their class pet is long gone. I'm kind of impressed by how calm Miss Fountain stays. She's all business on the intercom with the office describing the escaped lizard. Thank you for a very enjoyable circle time, Mr. Kermit says formally. We should probably say our goodbyes, though. I doubt she even hears him. Back in room 117, I'm thinking now we're really going to get it. But our teacher silently returns to his crossword puzzle, leaving us to the worksheets on our desk. Chapter 8, Mr. Kermit. When breakfast is mustard on toast, that's a sure sign that it's time to go back to the grocery store. It means I've run out of butter and cream cheese and jam, and I'm digging into the condiment packs left over from my last McDonald's run. Come to think of it, this is my last slice of bread, too, and stale doesn't begin to describe it. The apartment is a dump. Clean enough, but definitely from a bygone era. I can afford much better, but I'm too disinterested to redecorate and too lazy to move. It's the perfect place for a meal of mustard on toast, the breakfast of the disinterested and lazy. Not for the first time, I picture Fiona's house, with its picket fence and oh-so-green lawn. It's more vivid now, since I can imagine Emma growing up there, playing on the swings, riding her tricycle on the driveway, and playing with her first lizard. I don't want to think about her last lizard, thanks to the Unteachables. God only knows what happened to Vladimir. He's probably trapped in the walls of the school somewhere, starving to death. If he made it out of the building, he's roadkill for sure. Eventually, I go down to the cocoa nerd and start it up in a cloud of burnt oil. I'm actually calling it that thanks to Parker. For some reason, I can't get it out of my head. Something else to lay at the feet of the Unteachables. June has never looked farther away. I'm not even a third of the way to school when the billboard looms up. Come see the largest inventory of new and used vehicles in the Tri-County area. And there's his face, grinning out through a flaming hoop like he's some kind of circus performer, and not the sleazy used car dealer he was always meant to be. Jumping Jake Terranova, who will jump through hoops to get you a great deal on the perfect new or used car. Even though I pass this billboard every day, it's always somehow a blow to see him up there. He doesn't look much different than he did as a 7th grader, always grinning, like he's got it all figured out. And he's still selling cars and SUVs now, instead of stolen copies of the National Aptitude Test. He's good at it, too. Terranova Motors is the 3rd largest auto dealership in the state. That's quite an accomplishment. Jumping Jake has come a long way since 7th grade, when his biggest accomplishment was ruining his teacher's life. No, I remind myself. Dr. Thaddeus did that. Sure, the cheating thing was an ugly scandal, but it's not as if I was in on the scam. All I was guilty of was trusting my students and believing that their best in the nation's test score was an honest achievement. My real crime, the one I'll never be forgiven for, was making Thaddeus look bad. The principal turned superintendent has been taking his revenge ever since. Jake Terranova was just the first tile that started the dominoes tumbling. The giant dealership looms up on the left. I can't help it. I count how long it takes to pass the vast lots and showrooms, 14 full seconds at the speed of traffic. It isn't enough that the Terranova kid got away with his 7th grade shenanigans. Obviously, they gave him the formula for getting rich. He's rolling in money, while the teacher he took down is living on bread and mustard and driving a cocoa nerd. Although the main reason I haven't replaced the car is that I blame all auto dealerships for Jake Terranova. I turn into the school lot where Parker's pickup truck is sprawled across the last 2 open spaces. Sure, give a middle school kid a driver's license. What could go wrong? Annoyed, I block the pickup in, making a mental note to keep the kid after school just long enough to beat him out of here. I didn't pack a lunch, but I remember buying a falafel a couple days ago, and I never got around to eating it. It's on the passenger seat, so I try the glove compartment. No luck. It must have fallen on the floor and rolled under the seat when the car went over a bump. The cocoa nerd doesn't have much in the way of suspension. Bending over double, I reach around and pat the floor on the passenger side. Sure enough, I find the paper sack. But when I pull it out, there's a hole in the bag, and the falafel is half eaten and torn to shreds. I get on all fours and peer under the seat. It looks like somebody lost a leather wallet down there. Then it shifts, and 2 beady eyes peer out at me. I recoil in shock, slamming the back of my head against the dashboard. With a squeak of fear, the creature begins to scramble away. But I jam my hand in and grab it before it can escape through the hole in the floor. Breathing hard, I draw the little guy out and hold him against my chest. Vladimir, I presume. In answer, the gecko poops on my shirt. I sigh, unable to muster up any anger or even surprise. Vladimir is merely continuing a pattern of treatment that's been going on for 27 years. I brush the tiny pellets away. So the fugitive lizard did make it out of the building. Not only that, he managed to find the one car in the parking lot with a hole in the floor and a falafel just waiting to be feasted on. And he's been here for the past 18 hours, safe and sound, while the custodians scoured the school, listening to every wall with stethoscopes. Still toting the little beast, I get out of the car. I hold on pretty tight at first, but relax when I realize Vladimir isn't going anywhere. Why should he? He's eating the rest of my lunch as we enter the school. I'm actually looking forward to restoring Vladimir to his rightful owner. True, that's dangerously close to caring, but Emma is almost like my daughter from an alternate universe, her being Fiona's kid. The young teacher already thinks my class is a horde of barbarians, mostly because they are. This might get her to consider the possibility that I'm not to blame for it. As I approach room 115, her voice stops me in my tracks. I know teachers get burned out, Mom, but this is different. He's barely even alive. I teach right next door to him. He doesn't open his mouth all day. Those poor kids are going to learn nothing because nobody's there to teach them. It's such a shame. I back up a step. She's stalking around the room, updating her bulletin boards with gold stars, holding her phone to her ear with one hunched shoulder. What she's saying hurts all the more because of who she's saying it to. A surge of resentment. What does Emma Fountain know about being burned out? She's barely older than the students. She thinks giving middle schoolers gold stars in class pets and lecturing them about being bucket fillers is education. How long has she been teaching? 10 minutes? The first time she tries to take on the Unteachables, they laid waste to her circle and released her lizard to the 4 winds. But Fiona's never going to hear that side of the story. Emma adjusts a drooping nostril on Harvey the Hall Pass Hippo. Okay, fine, he used to be a great teacher once. It's now that counts. Honestly, I can't believe you are actually engaged to that. I tense up, giving the gecko a squeeze. A short, sharp squeak is torn from his little mouth. She wheels and the phone drops from her ear. Vladimir! She grabs the lost pet from my arms and rains kisses down on its scaly head. Where did you find him? Around, I reply stiffly. I'm not in the mood for a conversation about the hole in the back of my car. She's red in the face. How long have you been standing there, Mr. Kermit? I'm tempted to say, long enough, or something else to make her feel bad because she of all people should know that wasn't a very bucket-filling conversation. But I hold my tongue. This used to be my favorite part of the day, when the students haven't come in yet to ruin it. It's usually downhill from here. My dramatic exit is spoiled by a small mustard burp as breakfast climbs a little higher up the back of my throat. I need coffee. I cheer myself by picturing the toilet bowl on the shelf in the faculty lounge, dwarfing all the lesser mugs. Chapter 9. Parker Elias. Back when Grandpa was alive, he and Grams ran the lunch counter at the bus station. I can still picture the luncheonette sign, which always looked like elect the noun to me. I don't remember much about Grandpa except that he used to tell me it was a $10 word, and I'd be able to read it just fine when I got older. We know how that worked out. Grams would stand me up in front of the candy counter, which seemed like it was a mile high, although that was just because I was small. She'd say, "What'll it be, kiddo?" And I would pick out whatever I wanted. In those days, I didn't mind being kiddo because she definitely knew my real name. "This handsome fellow is my grandson Parker," she'd announce whenever the regulars came by. You could just tell by the way she boomed it out that she was totally thrilled by the idea. I wonder if she knows that the guy who drives her every morning is the same little kid she used to brag about to her customers. It's not her fault. When Grandpa died, she started forgetting a lot of stuff. But you'd think a grandson would be an exception to that, especially a grandson who's supposed to be her favorite person in the whole world. Grams insists that the reason she can't get her act together is because she isn't a morning person. This is from a lady who gets up at 4 a.m. So we'll be halfway to the senior center before I look down and notice that her shoes don't match, or that instead of her purse, she brought a half loaf of Wonder Bread. There are those red, yellow, and blue polka dots smiling up at me, along with the name, which looks like Downer. Today, Mom's driving because Grams has her semi-annual conference with the social worker at the senior center. Mom calls it Meet the Teacher, since I guess it's a lot like a parent-teacher conference at school. "Speaking of which," she says to me, "how's 8th grade going? I understand you're in a different kind of program this year?" I almost reply, "Yeah, the Unteachables." But that wouldn't be a good idea. The minute she got through with Grams' Meet the Teacher, she'd be stalking the middle school looking to meet my teacher. I picture my folks trying to hold a conversation with Ribbit, who never glances up from his crossword puzzle. Dad especially would have no patience for that. Fall's our busiest season on the farm, with so much harvesting still to do. So I tell her, "It's going fine, like always." She casts me a doubtful look. Like always might not have been the best choice of words. Mom signs my report cards. She knows better than anyone what like always probably means. I add, our teacher has a lot of experience. He started out teaching stegosauruses and pterodactyls before moving to the Unteachables. Dinosaurs had no problem being in that class with a guy who did crossword puzzles all day. Mom looks like she has more questions, but luckily, Grams is waiting outside her building. No mismatched clothes or missing socks, no rubber gasket from the coffee maker on her wrist instead of a medical alert bracelet. She's thrown a little to see me in the passenger seat instead of behind the wheel, so it takes some coaxing to get her into the truck. She has to sit on the hump between Mom and me since the pickup has no back seat. "Of all the cars, you picked this one," she asked Mom. "You're crazy." "It's just for a couple minutes." my mother promises. Once we drop Parker at school, you'll have plenty of room. I'm Parker, I put in quickly since Grams is looking around the car in confusion. She beams at me. Hiya, kiddo. Want breakfast? No time. We're coming up on my stop. Mom pulls up in front of the school and I get out. She waves. Have fun. Yeah, right. Fun. That's the last word that comes to mind when I think of SCS 8. On the other hand, a sit down with Grams and a social worker won't be a party either. I'm probably getting the better deal. As the pickup roars off, I hear a crunching sound. A crushed vuvuzela lies on the pavement, the plastic busted by the weight of the truck. It seems like there are more of them around every day as we get closer to Spirit Week. And these are just leftovers from last year. The word is Principal Vargas just placed this giant order of new ones for 2019. They're going to be bright yellow, our school color, and say, Go, Go, Golden Eagles on the side. It doesn't make much sense to me that you can get a detention for chewing gum, but blasting away on a horn as loud as an air raid siren is considered school spirit. Instead of being late like most other mornings, I've got the opposite problem. I'm early. The buses haven't started arriving yet. I wander down to room 117, but nobody's there. The kids of SCS 8 dribble in 10 seconds before the late bell. And at that, we're usually ahead of Mr. Kermit. The only signs of life are coming from the room next door, 115. Miss Fountain is in her classroom, rearranging Velcro smileys on their job boards. There's already a Hershey Kiss sitting in the middle of each desk. You know what Mr. Kermit gives us every morning? Nothing, if you don't count the dirty looks. She spots me standing there in the doorway. Good morning, Parker. You're early today. Come have a kiss. I stare at her for a long time before I realize she's talking about the candy. Thanks. The chocolate is sweet in my mouth. When you spend all your time in SCS 8, you almost forget there's another way to live. My eyes find the lizard terrarium. Hey, I say suddenly, Vladimir's back. She beams. Mr. Kermit found him for me. Really? That doesn't sound like the ribbit I know, the one who wouldn't give anybody the skin off a grape. Suddenly I experience an almost irresistible desire to drop to the floor and sit cross-legged on the taped circle. I know Miss Fountain's teaching style is too babyish for our age, but circle time that day might have been the most comfortable I've ever been in middle school. When you're in that circle, nobody's going to ask you to read something that's written in the unbreakable code. Maybe Aldo can't come up with any nice things to say, but I'm willing to go with it. If it means no reading, I'll even say nice things about Elaine. A couple of the 7th graders show up, and there's an emotional reunion with Vladimir. I join in for a while, but eventually one of them notices I'm there. You're not in this class, he comments meaningfully. That's right, I reflect with a sigh. I'm not. I shoulder my backpack and head next door, even though it's still early. Kiana crouches in the hall outside SCS 8, a look of intense concentration on her face. What's going on? I ask. Shh. She presses a finger to her lips and points inside the classroom. Mr. Kermit is talking, and at first I think he's chewing someone out. His voice is a lot sharper than his usual half-sleepy drone. Then I hear the reply. Tiny and very close. It's coming from the intercom. Right on the other side of the door. Principal Vargas. I'd think you'd be happy about this, Zachary, the principal is saying. It's no secret that the sound of those vuvuzelas drives you over the edge. Zachary. Mr. Kermit's name is Zachary. That's not the point, our teacher replies. You've already separated my class from everybody else in the building. Maybe you have your reasons for that, but you can't exclude them from the activities for Spirit Week. That's punishing them for something they haven't done yet. You loathe Spirit Week, Mrs. Vargas accuses. We're not talking about me. We're talking about my students. As happy as I'd be to ignore the whole thing, I'm their only teacher. Who's going to stick up for them if I don't? Besides me, Kiana pumps a fist and whispers, Go Ribbit! Think of who we're talking about here, the principal insists. Think of the disruption they're capable of. Now picture them with vuvuzelas in their hand. Let that be my problem, Mr. Kermit says stubbornly. It's not going to be anybody's problem, Mrs. Vargas insists. It's a done deal, Zachary. Your kids are out. We hear a click as the office breaks the connection. On the other side of the door, Mr. Kermit mutters something I can't make out. Did you hear that? Kiana breathes. Mr. Kermit cares about us. I didn't hear anything about caring, I retort. That was all about vuvuzelas, which we're not getting anyway. Weren't you paying attention? He fought for us. I can't figure him out, I complain. He hates vuvuzelas. Why would he want us to have them? So he can kill whoever blows one? She throws up her hands in exasperation. Don't you see? It's not about the noisemaker. It's about fairness. That doesn't make much sense to me. If life was fair, there would be no such thing as the Unteachables in the first place. That is the end of chapter 9. All right, I will see you guys later.